On a basketball team, you have your shooters, defenders, rebounders, scorers, and more that all play a role in an attempt to both maximize their skill set and their team's chances of winning. In the same way, when it comes to classical music, or the likes of an orchestra, you have a variety of instrumental families such as percussion, strings, woodwinds, brass, and more, that all have their very own unique sounds and help fill a role to bring the music and the collective sounds together at the very highest level. Many of the great point guards in the history of basketball are often referred to as floor generals, a title which refers to the prototypical or true point guard who sets the table for their teammates while running the show offensively and overall serves as an extension of a coach on the floor. In terms of music, you have your maestro or composer who leads an entire orchestra, much like how a floor general puts the other 4 players he shares the court with in the best spots for their unique talents to shine through and help their team win.
What do you do?
I play the orchestra.
Oklahoma City has a new maestro leading the Thunder on the court in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a 6'6", lanky, unconventional point guard and floor general who has made first-team All-NBA each of the past 2 seasons, along with back-to-back top 5 NBA MVP finishes. So needless to say, he's doing pretty well conducting the Thunder's offense. Today, we are focusing on an area of the floor where Shai as a superstar may shine brighter than he does in any other aspect of his game as a maestro of the mid-range. I will be diving deep into how he's able to get to his spot so consistently, the unique talents that make him stand out in that area of the floor, his success in what many call a dying aspect of the game, and how he compares to some of the elite modern and great mid-range players in NBA history. Shai, in a lot of ways, is breaking the modern mold in terms of standards for mid-range scorers and shooters, not only in volume but efficiency as well. From my research, only 12 players in the past regular season attempted at least 4 mid-range shots per game among qualified players according to the NBA's tracking data. And would you look at that, 5 out of the top 6 leaders in points per game from this past season are all in this list. Who would have guessed? Maybe the mid-range isn't dead or totally abandoned? Shai ranks second best among this list of qualified players in mid-range shooting efficiency, only trailing one of the best players, scorers, and shooters to ever play the game in Kevin Durant, who's also a 7-foot basketball savant and human cheat code, so not exactly the worst guy to play silver behind if you're Shai. But regardless of KD's number 1 spot last season percentage-wise, Shai finds himself near the top of mid-range efficiency for last season and among the company of a few of the higher-level mid-range scorers in recent memory. But does that same mid-range production translate to the playoffs? Will Shai be able to get to those same clean looks against more physical defenses and teams game planning to keep him away from those spots on the floor? The quick answer is yes. Shai was not only able to get to his favorite spots, but he also did it in extremely high levels of success through 2 rounds of postseason basketball. Among players that totaled at least 45 mid-range shot attempts during this year's playoffs, Shai was able to go up a whole nother level, shooting 54.4% from the mid-range in the postseason, which was up from the 49.4% clip that he shot during the regular season. Among the only 8 players to qualify, Shai shot the highest percentage of 54.4% and was only joined by one other player to shoot over 50% from that distance in Kyrie Irving, who just barely made the cut at 50.7% on mid-range attempts in this postseason.
To me, what differentiates him from every other star scorer in the league is he operates in an area of the floor that no one else operates in all the time. He controls from edge of the lane to edge of the lane. If you were to draw a line straight up the edge of the lane all the way to half court, it's unbelievable the extent to which he's able to manipulate the basketball within that parameter. But no matter what the defense does to him, no matter where he's shielded, no matter where he's sent, no matter where the traffic comes from, he controls an area of the floor that makes it really difficult to scheme, to take the ball out of his hands, to blitz him, to whatever it may be. And that is, to me, the greatness of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I've just never seen an offensive player be that comfortable in a crowded area of the floor in the paint. And you never really get to force him into an area that he's not comfortable.
Although I am sure that Shai would say that he loves all spots within the mid-range equally, it became pretty clear to me by watching him over the past few years and through the film research I did for this project that Shai does have a favorite spot. A portion of the mid-range that is roughly 10 to 16 feet away from the basket, which I like to call the Shai Zone. Shai last season shot 53.9% on attempts from the Shai Zone according to Basketball Reference. For some context as to how great and efficient SGA is from shooting from 10 to 16 feet, I looked into how some of the better and more iconic mid-range scorers' shooting numbers going back to the 1996-1997 season compared to SGA from the Shai Zone last year. During the 2023-24 NBA regular season, SGA shot a higher percentage from the Shai Zone than any Kobe Bryant, Kawhi Leonard, Dirk Nowitzki, DeMar DeRozan, Allen Iverson, Paul Pierce, Carmelo Anthony, Rip Hamilton, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Paul George, LaMarcus Aldridge, Klay Thompson, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Luka Doncic had ever done in any single season in their careers. Although all of these players couldn't match up with Shai efficiency-wise, he's not alone in this rare air conversation from the mid-range. Here are a few other players who shot better than SGA did in 2023-24 from the Shai Zone for an entire regular season. So Shai may have been a hair less efficient than those 6 other seasons, but what stands out to me is the attempts and massive distance and volume from Shai compared to the rest of the pack. SGA from the Shai Zone attempted 458 shots, which is 135 more shots than the second most in a year, which was during KD's 22-23 season that he put up 323 shots from 10 to 16 feet. The widest gap in attempts is between Shai this season and Steph Curry in 2013-14, where SGA put up 343 more shots from the Shai Zone than Steph did. That gap is so absurdly large that if you combine Steph's season with KD's second place season, it would only add up to 438 attempts from the Shai Zone, which would still fall 20 shot attempts short of SGA's 23-24 season from that exact same familiar range. This level of volume from the mid-range, specifically the very obviously widely known Shai Zone, is far from common. In the past 15 years, there have only been 10 seasons in which a player has attempted at least 400 shots from 10 to 16 feet. So with volume included, it just puts even more into perspective just the historic and almost comical level that Shai was dominating and producing extremely efficiently from his favorite spot on the floor. His 23-24 season of 458 shot attempts from the Shai Zone was only topped by Dirk Nowitzki in 2009-10 when he put up 472 shots from that same range. And in terms of efficiency among the leaders in volume over the last 15 NBA seasons, SGA stands alone at the top, shooting 53.9% from the Shai Zone, with the second highest percentage of that group being 50.9% by Elton Brand in 2010-11. Shai last year produced at the level of a historically elite mid-range player, especially from his favorite spot on the floor. But how is he able to generate this many looks from and around the Shai Zone? If someone as dumb as me can know how dangerous he is from those spots and find the numbers to back up the eye test, then I am pretty sure that opposing players, coaches, and teams are all pretty aware of this situation as well and aren't just willingly handing Shai a bunch of target practice shots from the mid-range every game.
I promise we tried.
As much as this is a mid-range centered video, Shai's offensive bread and butter is getting downhill into the paint for easy finishes around the rim. Shai's ability to threaten defenses as a driver, no pun intended, is the biggest driving force that opens up the Shai Zone for clean looks. Often teams are so worried about him attacking the paint and the rim that they end up giving SGA too much room in the mid-range for Shai to carve them up from. After trading Chris Paul to the Suns, the Thunder gave SGA the car keys to OKC's offense, and ever since then he has led the NBA in drives per game in all 4 seasons since taking over. Shai has obviously cornered the market on drives per game over the last 4 years, but I wanted to know how he compared historically. So I went back and found the top 5 highest drives per game seasons since the NBA started tracking drives during the 2013-14 season, so we have a decent 10-year sample size to look from. Number 1 is from Shai in 2020-2021 with 25.2 drives per game, and then we have a tie for second and third with Shai in 21-22 and Shai in 22-23, both with 23.9 drives per game. Number 4 on the list is Shai yet again from his past season where he averaged 23.3 drives per game, and rounding out the top 5, we finally have someone who is not Shai and Luka Doncic in 21-22 when he averaged a clean 22.2 drives per game. So not only is Shai consistently at the top of these rankings year in and year out, he essentially has taken the previous record book and thrown it into a wood chipper with the leap in production levels that we've seen from him the past 4 seasons as a consistent downhill attacker. One of the more identifiable aspects or stylings of Shai's offensive game is the incredibly unique and unorthodox pace in which he plays with. He's constantly stopping, starting, and so on in what almost feels like an infinite loop until he can get his defender caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And in that split second that Shai can sense that he's created an advantage or force his defender out of position, it's like a shark smelling blood in the water. With just the slightest move, change in direction, use of his eyes, and more, Shai is able to manipulate entire NBA defenses. Shai might not not be among the most elite or dynamic athletes in the NBA, but don't be fooled. If you give him any type of window, he can leave you burnt to a crisp with his unbelievably smooth moves, long strides to the rim, and go-go gadget-like arms that contort and infinitely extend to allow him to finish from just about anywhere he wants at the basket. A player like Russell Westbrook can go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, blazing the court and leaving others in the dust. Shai may not be able to get to 60 in 2 seconds, but he can get to 40 in 2 seconds, and more importantly, stop on a dime in half a second. Shai doesn't have that dangerous nuclear X-Factor athleticism gene, but his ability to slam the brakes while still having complete control of his body, momentum, and touch on his shot is absolutely unbelievable. Defenders at one point can be in lock and hip step with Shai, then the very next second, it's like they get pulled off the stage with a hook like they're in an old cartoon, only to leave Shai so open that it is now essentially a practice shot from his favorite spot in the mid-range. And if you don't believe what I'm saying about the impact that Shai's unique rhythm and playstyle has on others, here's what 6-time All-NBA defensive player Paul George had to say about SGA's pace superpower.
Shifty, plays at his own speed, like he's deceptively quick. You know, he's gonna rock you to sleep and then blow by you. Like everything is just pace. Like slow, fast, fast, slow. Like he's gonna throw you off, your timing off. You might be in front of him, you might stop him, and then you'll relax. And then he'll, boom, attack you right again. And you're like, oh, shit. I thought I had you.
Thought we were done here.
Yeah, I thought you was going to give it up.
Shai's elite pace really stands out in his ability to create consistent and effective levels of separation from defenders in a variety of ways. I've heard other NBA players refer to Shai as slippery, which I would have to agree with. You can feel the amount of stress, strain, and pressure that Shai puts on defenses and individual defenders who are trying to keep him contained. Defenders will often opt to play super physically with Shai to offset his pace advantages, but Shai is not the same 180-pound rookie for the Clippers anymore. According to the Thunder's 2023 training camp roster, Shai has bulked up to roughly 200 pounds. Although he still has somewhat of a seemingly wiry frame, don't get it twisted, Shai is incredibly stout and knows how to leverage his strength to effectively create separation. He loved getting to this little bump mid-range step back or sidestep jumper where he does a great job of creating space by burrowing himself a bit into the body of his defender, only to stop on a dime and take a step back and give himself an incredibly clean look at the hoop. You would see this from him often against bigger and taller defenders where Shai would get his base and legs low while generating contact to help himself manufacture some separation in space. Shai has a unique ability to get away with these little push-offs and chicken wings into his defenders to create space. He does a great job of towing the line on these plays and not being called for constant offensive fouls, which is an underrated but an extremely valuable skill to be able to choose from in his deep bag of tricks. The extension of the off-ball arm tends to be the giveaway when it comes to push-off offensive fouls being called, but Shai does a great job of generating separation through contact without going all the way and extending his arm where he's in position to be caught and charged with a foul. So if defenders are going to play physically against Shai, it's really nice to have the ability to turn a negative into a positive where the primary defender is not able to dictate how Shai plays. His overall flexibility, mastery of body control, and balance are all testaments to his core strength and unique athleticism for a 6'6" big guard to be bending, stretching, and contorting his body this way on these drives. But the word separation, isn't that a bit subjective? Like, what does it even mean for a player to actually create space and separation? Can that even be measured in a tangible way? I'm glad you asked. The good people over at the NBA describe an attempted shot with the nearest defender within 0 to 2 feet as very tight, 2 to 4 feet as tight, open as 4 to 6 feet, and 6 feet or more is categorized as very open. During the 2024 NBA playoffs, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averaged 18.7 mid-range shot attempts per game. Of those 18.7, 1.1 of them were against very tight contests, and another 1.1 were against very open defense. Meaning that the last 16.5 of Shai's playoff mid-range attempts came against tight or open defenses. 7.7 of those came against tight defensive contests, and then Shai averaged 8.8 open looks from mid-range, which ranked number 1 among players in the NBA playoffs among open mid-range shot looks per game. So with 16.5 out of the 18.7 shots coming against those levels of contest, that would mean that 88% of Shai's playoff mid-range shot attempts were against 2 to 6 feet of space in open air. For reference, Shai shot 87% from the free throw line this regular season, meaning that it is more likely statistically for Shai to create a tight to open mid-range shot in the playoffs than it was for him to make a wide open free throw attempt during the 23-24 regular season. Just as a maestro can manipulate the pace, style, and rhythm in which an orchestra plays with, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has continued to grow in understanding the art of manipulating and bending NBA defenses and defenders to his will. He constantly keeps defenders on their toes while setting up moves early on that he will later use to flip that same defender on their head when they think that they know what is coming out of a move that they saw early in that game, series, or on tape. Watch here as he sizes up a slower defender who's almost solely focused on not getting blown by. Shai loads up like he's about to explode downhill into a drive, only for it to be a jab step that launches the defender and their momentum backwards while Shai steps back into a wide open look from 3. The manipulation, use of counters, and processing speed that Shai is able to operate with in the speed of an NBA game is extraordinary to say the least. Shai has mentioned in the past that he has a counter for basically any look that defenses want to throw his way. Earlier this year, former NBA podcaster Redick, now Lakers head coach, had this to say about Shai's elite use of counters and the lack of holes in his game.
One of the key developments to his offensive game has been the development of the counter. This motherfucker has a counter for everything now. And we talk all the time about players with no holes in their game. I don't think Shai has a hole in his game.
Shai has an unreal bag of counter moves for basically any situation. It's almost like any test that the opposing defenses can create, Shai already has the answer sheet to, and now it's just about how quickly he can solve the problem and create an advantage for himself to attack off of. Daniel Gafford on this possession is playing Shai rightfully so, very much for the drive, wanting to do anything in his power to stay in front and not get blown by SGA. Using a jab step, Shai is able to create a nice cushion of separation and then he sinks a clean shot from 3 before Gafford even knows what has hit him. Later on, in a similar situation, Shai on an island with Gafford, who's probably thinking to himself, oh, I've seen this move before. Shai's gonna jab and then pull from 3. Joke's on him, I'm not falling for that again. Shai, with an almost mutant level of processing speed and anticipation, is able to immediately make his defender pay for playing too far up for the 3 instead of the drive, and it's a Shai blow-by for a layup, and Gafford is left in the dust with less answers to guarding Shai than he started with before. Mark Daignault mentioned many times last season that the Thunder were an uncommon group, and that is exactly what OKC has in a freakish and unique player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is about as unorthodox as it gets as a lanky, slender, oversized point guard with an off-rhythm game who also happens to be one of the best paint shot creators, mid-range shooters, separation generators, finishers, and isolation players in the NBA today. As we've seen since he entered the league, Shai has a seemingly unquenchable thirst to get better. So to see the level of player that he has turned himself into at only 26 years old as a maestro of the mid-range, it will be interesting to see what skill Shai ends up mastering next in his pursuit of reaching his ceiling and full potential as an all-around basketball player. But I'm curious, what do you all think? Would you say that Shai is a maestro of the mid-range? Has your mind changed at all about the idea of the mid-range shot dying? And do you think that this level of production and efficiency from the Shai Zone is repeatable for SGA next season? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, along with what you thought of this video, topics you'd like to see me discuss, and more. Lastly, thank you to every single one of you for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you saw in this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave this video a like, subscribed to my channel, and shared it with your friends so I can keep making fun videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, when we talk some more Thunder basketball. And if you want even more great Shai content, click here for a video about his playoff secret weapon right now.